In spring of 2019, Toybox and Arc System Works released a rather intriguing, somewhat horror-themed visual novel/dating simulator named World End Syndrome. The game released digitally in North America on the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4. It also secured a physical release in PAL territories. We are going to look at the PlayStation 4 version today, and thank you Arc System Works for providing the review code. World End Syndrome isn't to be confused with Our World Is Ended, Death End Request, Zanki Zero Last Beginning, or really any other game whose title seems to revolve around the end of the world, or things in general just ending. I'm not sure what's going on in Japan right now, but this just seems to be the new in thing. That said, putting the title aside, this game definitely isn't like the rest of those. World End Syndrome begins with our main character, a cynical and depressed young adult whom I named Tark, arriving in a small coastal town named Mihate. Mihate looks and feels like it was sliced straight out of a different time period. The buildings all appear to be from a different generation, yet modern conveniences still exist. The town holds a population of roughly 8,000 people, and it wonderfully evokes a feeling as true to a small coastal town as a game can pull off. Mihate, however, is steeped in tradition and mysterious folklore that our main character knows nothing about as he first arrives. Shortly after arriving in Mihate town and getting off the train, Tark arrives at his uncle's mansion, where he will be living and spending the summer with his cousin. As the summer unfolds, Tark, while battling feelings of guilt related to the life he lived before arriving in Mihate, will pursue some of the girls from the local school, getting to know them better and going on dates. Tark joins forces with a local school club, set on investigating the town's paranormal rumors. But these investigations become more than just a hobby, as they become entwined with mysteries of unsolved murders, folklore tales of the dead coming back to life, and more. Such an investigation gets out of hand quickly, as he and his friends end up being stalked by cultish individuals seemingly intent on keeping the town's mysteries a secret, and the secrets of the town buried. These cultish figures, however, are under more pressure than usual as well, as a pop idol recently arrived in town to film a movie about the town's mysterious folklore. This movie could threaten to spill the beans on whatever secret operation is actually at work here in Mihate. If I could compare the feeling of this town to anything, it would be Higurashi, a quaint, tight-knit town with some messed up secrets beneath its surface. It lends itself wonderfully to uplifting moments of romance and beautiful scenery, but in the right light, those same locations become pictures from a nightmare. After a lengthy introduction to set up the cast and the town, we finally get to the crux of the gameplay. World End Syndrome takes place almost entirely in the month of August. Every day, Tark wakes up, he meets with his club members, and then he whiles away his time by just kind of randomly going around town. There's not a lot of direction in this here video game, and that doesn't quite work in its favor considering its structure. You get a list of locations to pick from. At different times of day, characters will be in different locations. Your job is to find the character you're after and spend as much time with them as possible. Sometimes when you go to locations, however, there's nobody there at all and you just end up wasting time. When there is somebody there, there will be a short, mostly empty exchange of words. You score some affinity points, which gets added to this meter here, and you get closer to being on their route. Thing is though, only one route can be done at a time, and the routes need to be done in a specific order, so there's not really any freedom here. You either get the route that you can get on that playthrough, or you get the bad ending. World End Syndrome doesn't do much to tell you where the girl you need to talk to is, and this can result in a lot of wasted time. If you just click around not knowing where to go, it's possible to make it all the way to the final day of the month, having not unlocked even one of the character-specific events. It's unlikely, but it's possible. A guide comes highly recommended for World End Syndrome. When you score enough points and acquire enough progression flags, character-specific events will open up. And this is where the real heart of the romance stories lie. Outside of specific character events, the basic interactions go a little something like this. Hey. Hi. I'm going now. Okay, see ya. Following those interactions, you do score affinity points, but really there's nothing here. With the character-specific events, it's a little bit more like this.
Yo, baby, you've had your asshole licked by a fat man in an overcoat?
Okay, it's not quite like that. Things are generally slower, more tender, and character-driven. Gradually, you peel back on the girls' identities, you get to know them better, uncover their secrets, look at their butts, you know, the things one does when trying to woo a lady. With perseverance, every route leads to something rather cute and charming. When the route is complete, you start the month back over like nothing ever happened. When you do restart the month, however, you're set up to be on a new route. Unfortunately, this method of gameplay invites a lot of repetition, and you will be fast forwarding through most things that are not special character scenes. But again, use a guide as to not waste an exorbitant amount of time. There are 5 routes in the middle section of this game. Unfortunately, none of them are for the best girl, the busty hot teacher. Each route is more interesting than the last in terms of the romance, but each route also gets closer to uncovering the town's mysteries, with only the final route actually doing so. Though the dating is fun, I do feel like the overarching plot wasn't woven into the dating elements enough to make it feel like the game was really going anywhere much of the time. It's only the last 2 routes that I feel like the plot was really important. That said, the overarching story does have a great climax by the end, though it definitely has one bit of dialogue I need to pretend never happened to keep myself convinced of that. It's just, Japan has this thing where everybody always needs to be friends. Everybody needs to have some bittersweet resolution involving forgiveness, and sometimes it's just super forced in. This is one of those times. In essence, it kinda works a little bit like this. I know you killed my dog, but I think you're a great person. And when I really think about it, it's my fault. I took the last slice of pizza and that completely destroyed you. Because I done you wrong, I'm really the bad guy. It's my fault. My dog is dead. You know, sometimes this crap just, you don't need it. It's okay for characters not to be alright in the end. That kind of crap, at least with execution this poor, drags the climax down a ton. But if you can mentally cut that part out, the ending doesn't actually lose anything, and everything around that little bit of dialogue is pretty rad. When the final route ends, you unlock a new prologue, and this, my god, this added something to the game I did not see coming. This is kind of like the climax after the climax, where a new mystery I didn't even realize was kicking around gets solved, and yeah. This part, though kind of tacked onto the end, blew me away, and definitely made it worth sticking through. I mean, the characters were cool too, and I should have mentioned them a bit more, but they're kind of hard to comment on. They don't quite fully fit into the archetypes that we're used to seeing, simply because the characters aren't that exaggerated. They're all pretty grounded and realistic save for one. Kensuke, the resident loser and pervert. To be fair, it wasn't even his writing that killed him for me, but his voice acting. Every line was an annoying screech in delivery. I can appreciate that the voice actor was trying, as most other voice actors got away without having to perform too strongly, but man, this did not work for me.
ちょっとカオリンそりゃ冷たいわ
ちょうど今わめいてる男の子の隣よ
ああここなのああそうおい転校生くんここだってここ
So to quickly recount, World End Syndrome is a kind of directionless dating sim with routes that have to be performed in a specific order. It's set in a really intriguing town with really intriguing characters and really intriguing mysteries. Although those mysteries tend to fall into the background more often than I think is beneficial. When things ramp up though, this becomes something to cherish. The world building is great, and I feel like I learned a lot about Mihate and its history, both paranormal and socioeconomical. The character development is as well very well handled. At around 25 to 30 hours to fully clear this game, this may take too much dedication up front for a lot of players and make it harder for the payoff, which I personally feel is great, to feel worth it. That said, I've seen another reviewer quote the game at being only 10 to 15 hours. I have no clue how they pulled that off, and maybe I missed something, but for me, it was much closer to the 30-hour mark. And that about covers the novel part of this visual novel. So let's take a look at the visual part now, because it's definitely hit or miss. Let's start with the good. I love the scenery and background art here. The way all the backgrounds are painted in general just speaks to me, and the little bits of computer-aided animation really helps liven things up. Where the game struggles is in the character illustrations and posing. Let's just take a quick look at Mibu here. The back arc? Pretty damn unnatural. The length of the shoulders and angle of each one, they don't add up, do they? If you just look at the title screen here for a few seconds, you'll notice things out on basically every character. After playing for just a couple of hours, you'll become accustomed to this, but it's a weird thing to see in a final product. Special event CGs, though, are much better drawn. The music in the game fits, and it reminds me a lot of the Root Letter soundtrack. It won't blow you away, but I did find a couple songs here and there really grabbed me.
あれお前顔色悪いぞ
Sound effects, when used, are usually okay, but towards the beginning, there were some real big red flags. The voice acting, as I said before, is mostly okay, save for Kensuke. The game is Japanese only, but there is one character that tries some English, and oh boy, is it unintentionally hilarious. At least I think it's unintentional.
息子の身太
Shut up! You must obey our rules if you want to be here!
The game runs fine, but I'm having issues getting my trophy data to sync. The options menu is light, but offers enough to get you by. Only one of these options kinda doesn't make any sense. Text window transparency doesn't actually adjust the transparency of the window. Instead, it adjusts the transparency of all the text contained within the window, as well as the window itself. Having invisible text isn't exactly that useful. Despite its faults and its poor progression, in the end of all things, the story truly was a pretty great one, and worth recommending on that alone. I just wish they'd done progression differently so I wouldn't have to add the big disclaimer of play with a guide. If you're fully against guides, and trust me, it's incredibly rare I ever use one myself, then wait for a discount or prepare for a really long and possibly frustrating commitment. But it's a commitment with some pretty awesome, shocking, and emotionally gripping payoffs that you're likely to remember for quite some time. And that's all I'm gonna say on World End Syndrome. If you guys found this video helpful or useful at all, you know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you can. If you really like the content, consider supporting the show on Patreon. All my links are in the All my socials are linked in the description below, and as always folks, thanks for watching.